Okay, this is quite interesting. What I did this time was to add the usual 25% of water to some sand. This is new sand, and there's no salt added to it. And then I thought I would harrow it and leave it rough like it is now. I've just got this out of the freezer, and it takes an awful lot longer for the sand to freeze. The reasoning behind that was that if you leave the track in a rough condition like that, it's quite the opposite of what you think you should do, but in fact it traps air between the lumps of sand, and air of course is a good insulator. And even now the temperature in the middle of that sand is only 0 degrees, whereas with the sort of compacted sand that we did before, the temperature dropped down to -2.5 within an hour. So it's had a dramatic effect. So what we're going to do is try two things really. One is to try and defrost this with brine rather than, that's obviously salt in water, already dissolved in water, 10%. So we're going to try and do that, and we're going to try and use that instead of salt, and we're going to try and defrost it by repeatedly harrowing the sand and then compacting it down. I think the point with that is what you're doing is putting energy into the sand when you do it. When you harrow it, you're moving the sand particles in relation to each other, but the big lumps don't get broken down. When you then compact it down, as you might with a tractor wheel, you're squashing the sand particles down, they're rubbing against each other, you're generating friction, you're generating heat. That's the principle of how roads defrost when they have traffic on them after you've added salt. As I said before, it's not the action of the salt as such. You do need the traffic going over the roads to defrost them. So that's the plan. We can't simulate exactly though, because obviously in the wild, if you like, on a track, the air temperature will be hovering around the 0 or below, whereas we're in the kitchen and the air temperature is 20, so that will warm the sand up as we work and might give us deceptive results. We might have to try it again on a cold day outside, where the temperature is closer to 0. So, okay, we're registering 0.1 degree in the middle. The surface, though, is rock hard, as you can see. The surface is frozen, but the underlying layer is still only just on freezing point. That's the difference with leaving it harrowed. Okay, so what we'll try and do is harrow that. It's going to take quite a lot of hard work to do that. You can see again what happens as we experienced before. As the harrow goes through, all you do is separate the sand into lumps roughly the size of the gap between the harrow tines. But we have at least broken up the sand so it's not a solid block. Okay, we'll add some 10% saline solution now, 10% brine saline. This is in the same volume of water as is already held by the sand. So we'll end up with 5% solution in the sand. We will, because this is not draining, it's the famous Chinese takeaway tub there, because there's no drainage there, we will double the water content of the sand, and that will obviously make a difference. So again, we might get deceptive results there. We'll just see what happens when we add some brine to that now. The other aspect of actually adding a liquid salt solution is that of course it's warmer than freezing. So again, that will bring a little bit of heat to the track, not very much obviously. If it's been left in a bowser overnight, it won't be much more than freezing, but it is a bit warmer than the track itself. So we will try adding, I'm not going to add all of this at the moment because I don't want to make the sand too wet. Now you can see in fact that that's already possibly had some effect. I'm not sure. You can see it's not frozen on the surface there. We have a bit of a mush there in the middle. So let's just try harrowing that. Mix that amount of water in a bit. Still rock solid lumps really. We're not really getting anywhere with it. But okay, let's drive over that with our tractor now. I'm just going to do this down the middle of the sample. Okay, that's one pass of a tractor. Okay, we harrow it again. Okay, another pass of a tractor. That's quite hard, mind. But then so does a tractor. Harrow it again. Tractor wheel. Okay, harrow it again. tractor wheel. Now, I'm not really being a tractor wheel because I'm actually actively seeking out the lumpy bits and squashing them with my pot there. So again, this is probably working better than it would do in real life on a track. Okay, we've still got plenty of lumps in that. You can see how this is really quite hard work and how slow progress is. Now that's even using brine pre-dissolved salt, so we're not getting that cooling effect now of adding salt and trying to defrost by just adding the salt, and we're getting a slight warming effect by working through the sand repeatedly. And the simulation of the compacting down with the tractor is probably much more intense than you would actually get with the tractor. And as I said, we've used brine instead of adding salt, which again, conventional wisdom will have you believe that that works better, but in fact I'm really not so sure that it does. We started with pre-harrowed sand, and the middle of the pre-harrowed sand was only just on freezing point, so it wasn't nearly as cold. So everything was in our favour. And yet, progress has been decidedly poor. Let's just get the temperature of that now. Whoops. Okay. So we're dropping down towards -1 now. If you remember, when we added salt to the track before it froze, we added salt to the sand before it froze, it went down to about -1.6 and hadn't frozen. That was with 5% salt. Okay. So we've ended up around about the same temperature, in other words, -1.4 at the moment. And we've got a sludge there. The water hasn't drained away as it probably would do on a normal track, but we've still got, even in that middle track there where I was compacting it down repeatedly, we still have lots of solid lumps. So really we haven't done very well with that test, it has to be said. We've used the brine. It doesn't come out well compared to actually using solid salt. It is probably not a solution to defrosting a track that's already frozen. These lumps are still rock hard. So I think that probably just reinforces the idea that once your track is frozen, you're really not going to defrost it unless you get a higher air temperature or the sun directly on it.